This is good. This is good.
Asante.
Asante sana.
Yes, now you occupy a very interesting position.
We do.
And it's good to host you in this capacity.
Can you imagine the last time?
The way things change.
Yeah, I know.
It's interesting.
I know, and it's such an honor,
yes.
To be seated in a place where, you're able to contribute. Mm-hmm. Positively and effectively. You do your best. Okay. Last time when I was with you, we were still analyzing politics.
Yes, you're still a political analyst.
Yeah. It's a long, it's actually a long shot, but we thank the leadership of this country that they recognize the talent, and that's why we are seated here.
Allow me to take this opportunity to congratulate you.
Asante sana, Fred.
So now in that position, that very interesting position, to speak on behalf of the government. Today, if you look at the dailies, it would appear that the government is suffering from a human resource crisis. Mm-hmm. On one hand, there's a doctor strike, where the argument is about the employment of 4,000 intern doctors. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, KRA is in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because of the recent recruitment exercise they engaged in that has resulted in a probe by Parliament. And what has finally emerged is that the method used to disqualify some people from employment was wanting. Mandatory pregnancy and HIV tests, that's what they're talking about. 133 people were disqualified through that process. The other story is on the hiring of officers by cabinet secretaries. Mm-hmm. And the example they're using, of course, I'm using it only as an example, is a recent appointment of Jackie Maribe, a former journalist, by the CS for Public Service. And they talk about, and let me refer to the headline on Taifa Leo, uajiri kiholela serikalini. Ripoti ya PSC yafichua jinsi naibu wa rais Rigathi Gachagua, mkuu wa mawaziri Musalia Mudavadi na mawaziri wengine walivyoajiri jumla ya washauri 250 na wafanyakazi binafsi bila kufuata utaratibu wa kisheria, meaning they sidestepped the Public Service Commission process. Now, all to do with HR. Now, I don't know if you're ready for this. So what is employment policy in government? Let's start from there.
Actually, it is very clear. There's an employment policy, so to speak. And I think, Fred, what I'm liking and the statement that you've just mentioned has the policy, has the protocol, has the standards been followed? All the habits die hard. And as such, it is indeed true that the government has a policy. You may recall some time back we were discussing something to do with the hiring of teachers. Yeah, we were discussing, not even in this administration, there was a time we were talking about the very same thing, hiring of doctors. And there has been a myriad of many other issues that you would consider human resource, a factor of human resource. But one thing, I think the best statement that we need to put forward is that there are standards, and those standards must be followed. The government, and in particular, the administration of His Excellency, the President William Ruto, has been very consistent when it comes to following the rule of law. They have been very consistent, and this is something I think you can give to us. The person who was on here earlier mentioned something which I liked. Mm-hmm. We are not there yet, but we are heading in the right direction.
But you talk about the president being a stickler to the rule of law.
Correct.
You're mentioning his deputy and his cabinet secretaries, employing 250 people. Those are not, that's not a small number by any standards, without following due process.
We may look at it that way, but remember, there are standards. If somebody has not followed,
so on one hand, the president is a stickler to the rule of law, but his cabinet is not?
No, I wouldn't say that. Somebody may be moved to get probably an advisor or two. There is indeed, and I think you would have it, and I will share it with you later. There is a memo that talks about that. There is a standard memo talking about that from the chief of staff in government, saying how many advisors a cabinet secretary would have and how many people they may onboard.
Okay.
It is very clear. So we go back to the standards. Are people following the laid procedures?
Okay.
Okay?
Meaning that the members of the cabinet have been allowed to hire a number of advisors?
There is, yes.
Do these advisors have to go through the same process through the Public Service Commission, probably for vetting? Or that is not a requirement?
I don't know whether it is a requirement or not, but one thing for sure that I know, they there's a letter that they get from the public service which gives them their terms. So that has been a standard thing. Now, if you are talking about the numbers, how many numbers or how many people a particular person, whether it's a cabinet secretary or a PS, can bring on board, there actually is a standing memo, and that's what I'm telling you. It is actually there.
So this one is wrong. What you're talking about, what we're seeing.
Unless I'm able to see in particular what you're talking about, because sometimes, Fred, we've known people to really exaggerate. Okay. Like when you say a cabinet secretary has hired or has taken, give or take, 10 advisors. Sometimes, it could be exaggerated because what the memo says from the head of public service is very clear, unless, and we've seen this in the past, you have people who, out of their own resources, they bring on people on board to assist them do various things.
Are you allowed to do that?
No, we've seen it. No, we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen where somebody will get out of their way and probably hire somebody to do a particular task. They may not be
also
using
raises questions.
They may not be using government resources, so to speak. And again, here we have to be very deliberate when we are talking about the standards and procedures that have been laid down in government, and where you have somebody maybe a small oversight that somebody is not following. That does happen, and we've seen it.
But
and it's not only in this.
It is not only about how much they earn or the money that is spent on them.
Yeah, correct.
Because you're working in government, meaning you have access to government resources. You have access to government secrets. Any person allowed into the government circle should be vetted for obvious reasons, because you'll be engaging in issues that concern members of the public, even beyond how much you'll be earning from it.
But look at it this way. You remember you have, and this is a good example I can give you, is where you have governors and members of parliament, where you have people who, they had a profession before they joined the government. And this is an example I'm giving you, and it's actually a very truthful example, because I've dealt with people who are in those circles, where you have somebody who was running, let's say, a law firm. They've joined the government, and they are now, leaving behind some of the things that they were doing. Necessarily, they won't close their law firm. They may get somebody to run it. But that does not necessarily mean that they need to leave their other area of production just because they've joined the government, right? They may not be hands-on anymore. They may hire other people to run that particular productivity, all right? But that does not mean that they'll be hands-off. So you will find people, and this we have seen, whether you're looking at it on MPs, senators, and governors, you will have somebody who has said, I have a private office somewhere. And from time to time, whether it's the weekend or when they have time, they'll be engaging that, that particular private productivity, if you will. So where it gets hazy and where it's wrong is for you to mix those two. You have people who have joined government, and by law, they are supposed to detach from what they are doing.
Does it mean that there's a problem with the processes in the Public Service Commission? Or are there loopholes that are being exploited by some individuals within government to sidestep this process intentionally?
We have seen in the past, we have seen small oversights here and there. But one thing I do not, one thing, Fred, I do not want to not effectively communicate is that the processes and procedures as far as human resource go in government are very clear. They are very direct.
But they are being
majority of the officers that have visited have actually stuck to those procedures.
Is it possible to have a clarity on how many advisors and the process that each
I can get that. I can get that, but I don't.
Process should be.
I can get that, and that's what I'm saying. There's a circular, and I think I can get that to you.
Okay.
There is indeed a circular
because we'll need that.
That stipulates how many advisors a particular person can get.
Okay.
You know, whether you're looking at it, whether it's the CS or a PS, or whether you're looking at the chief cabinet secretary, the DP, and the DP. There is actually a circular that says this is the amount of people. That same way you had a circular on travel.
Okay.
You know, and it said these are the amount of people that one is supposed to travel with.
Now that you raise it, are people adhering to that circular? Because
there are, because let me tell you. Let me tell you. You see, when the president said that it will not be business as usual, that is exactly what has happened. And you will find because recently we were told that the budget for travel after that circular, because the circular was issued, I think, in October or September last year by the head of public service, Felix Koskei, and he said the intention was to halve the amount of money spent on travel. Correct.
Yet the headlines this year showed that 4 months after that circular was issued, the amount spent on public travel was actually double.
Fred, one thing I can tell you without fear of contradiction, there are the headlines, and then there are the facts. I have seen
You're
facts.
disputing
Let me tell you, I have seen facts. And here, I don't want to compare apples to apples. I know the facts I've seen. I know the numbers that I've seen. And they tell a very different story.
What are the numbers saying?
They tell a very different story. In the past, you will have an office that had one CS moving with an entourage of about 8. Right now, that number has been halved or even taken lower, you know? And there are records to prove this. And that's why I'm saying there are totally two different animals when you tell me about headlines and the facts that I've been able to see. It talks about two separate animals.
Okay.
The one thing that I'm so sure about, those entourages that used to be there before have been so you're saying, despite the media saying and the headlines saying that the amount spent in the 4 months after the circular was issued on foreign travel stood at 7 billion shillings, which was more, or close to double what was being spent before, that the amount has actually gone dropped. Fred, we go back to what I'm telling you. There are the headlines, and then there are the facts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at something else, back to the HR issue, and this time let's focus on KRA. KRA engaged in a recruitment exercise last year to hire tax officers, about 1,400 or so. It ran into trouble when scrutiny found out that the numbers were skewed towards about 2 communities.
Right.
That 2 communities got about over 600 of these positions, or rather 781 positions, which is more than half.
Right.
And the rest were left to shared around, because issues around regional balance are key even in recruitment in such an institution. Now we're seeing even new issues emerging about the recruitment procedure and methods of disqualifying people. What do you say to, let's start with the issue of regional balance. What do you say to that kind of process? And
then we go back again, and I think we are going to be quoting this term quite often when we talk about the standard procedures, when we talk about the rules and the regulations that have been stipulated. And if you look at the issue about some of the areas that you have mentioned, which I am glad actually Parliament has called out on this process. When people don't follow procedures and rules, things or documents, communication that has been laid down, when it comes directly all the way from somebody like the head of public service, where ways to hire, whether you're looking at it from the government side of things or public service, whether there is a leakage within the board, because sometimes such hirings really are done by the board directly. If if there's an environment where the law is not being followed, I go back to what I told you. The administration that His Excellency, the President William Ruto, is leading is very deliberate and committed to ensuring that what has been agreed upon, what is law, what is factual, what is documented, is followed. Now, if you have somebody who is taking or is doing their monkey business, they will be found out.
Okay.
And it will be brought out. So some of these things do not necessarily mean that just because somebody has failed to do or they are cutting corners, does not mean it's trickling from above. And we have seen this. We have seen this, Fred, where people are called out. The president has been among the people calling out some of his officers, for blatantly, doing things that have not, that are not.
What about the role of politics in recruitment to the public service? And I'm asking this because a very senior official in this government has been quoted as saying that this government will benefit what he called shareholders.
Yes.
And if you look at that statement,
that's a statement
happening at KRA, you can actually see.
That's a statement you'll never get away from. Yeah? Some of that is,
it is a fact.
We need to differentiate between political talk and the real.
What if political talk is actually?
No. Fred, we need to differentiate, and I keep telling people, you need to differentiate between political talk and really.
Even when it manifests in an issue like recruitment.
On the ground. For instance, Public Service Commission is really an independent commission, correct? And if they don't follow the script, as guided by law, you can't really point it out to government and say, no,
can they really avoid
independent? Of course.
Political statements.
You see, back to where I told you, and this I can keep regurgitating until the cows come home. Mm-hmm. When the president said that I'll never pick a phone call and call somebody to ask for a favor, that just tells you the person who's leading government has shown you the way. So do what is right. And he keeps telling all of us, it is something he keeps insisting. When you're doing the right thing, never be afraid of doing the right thing. So this is a clarion call he's telling to all his officers, senior and junior alike. I have shown the way. I have not lifted my phone to call for favors. Mm-hmm. Neither should you. So these independent offices, they should just follow the prescribed standards and methodologies of doing things as per the law and the Constitution.
How practical is that? How practical is that when
it is very
a government official has said that we will go this other direction?
It is very practical and it can be done. And sometimes, it is very funny, Fred, that there are times, even the people in the media, I've seen you guys getting into this hole from time to time, where you will run and say, no, you cannot tell an independent commission or an independent office how to work. Mm-hmm. But when that independent office fails, you come back to government and say, you guys, you are the ones interfering. Mm-hmm. So, take your pick. Take your pick.
Are you saying that the independent should be held accountable by themselves?
Yes, let the independent offices that are mandated by law, let them follow the law. Period.
Okay. Now, what is emerging now is that through the same recruitment exercise, correct, that applicants were subjected to mandatory pregnancy and HIV tests. It is unheard of in this republic.
Yes.
Now, is this a new policy in government?
I've not read about that, so to speak, honestly. I've never heard of it.
This was told, it was revealed to Parliament.
Yes, I've never heard of it. And you see, even members of Parliament were shocked to hear, such. And where I don't want us to go, I don't want us to hang this on government. Mm-hmm. It's unfair. Because just because somebody failed to do or to carry out a task as per the law does not mean that everybody is complacent. And we have to call these things as they should be called. I remember there was a time, and I think we were with you, Fred, at some point, we were following the recruitment of police officers. You remember, there was a time they were being grilled, and everybody was coming up with very funny reasons, you know. Remember, the commission that was grilling them really was made up really of very senior officials. You had some parliamentarians, if I may recall. And the questions, the answers that were coming out there were laughable, yeah? But at the end of the day, there is somebody who is heading that commission who must make the right decision. Given the answers that somebody is telling them, and they can look at these answers and they say, you know what, this man is very culpable. Okay. But somebody within that government has to make the hard choice, has to make the hard decision. And you bring people who you see or feel culpable. You know, how many people have we learned? Will we see
someone being held culpable?
Will we see? There are people on a daily basis. We just don't report it.
On this issue, like Okere, because it was a huge recruitment drive.
Yeah, and
1,400 officers is not something simple.
And what I'm looking forward, and what me and you should look forward, really, Fred, is let's see with the report that Parliament comes up with. Let us see who dropped the ball. And let those people be held to account. You know, we've gotten to a point whereby there are no sacred cows anymore. Yeah? That is why it is very important for people to follow the law. Procedures and standards have been created. They've been put there for a reason. Okay. And if all of us, again, I quote the president, you should never, he keeps insisting to all of us.
So we should ignore any statement from anyone, even those members in cabinet, who are saying anything that's not in tandem with what the president says.
Contrary to the law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're still in studio with Gabriel Muthuma, the Deputy Government Spokesperson, and we continue looking at the headlines that trying to understand the HR crisis that the government is facing right now. But for a moment, I want us to take a break and head to Kisii, where my colleague Alfayo is present. Yesterday, the senators voted to impeach Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Monda, and we just want to get an update from that end to understand what exactly is happening. Alfayo, a very good morning. Bring us up to speed with the discussions happening in Kisii this morning.
Thank you very much, Indimuli. From here in Kisii town, with me I have various residents of Kisii County here with me, and I'm going to talk to them and on the issues of impeachment that started on the 29th, on the 12th of February. That's when the Ichuni Ward MCA, that is Wycliffe Siocha, brought the motion of the impeachment of the DG, that is Robert Monda, whereby 51 MCAs were able to impeach their signatures to support the motion that was supported by Karen Magara, the nominated senator, and whereby on the 29th of February, that was on Thursday, DG Monda was being impeached here at Kisii County Assembly. And yesterday night we saw that 39 senators were being able to impeach the DG. With me here I have various residents. Pengine tuweze kukaribia hapa karibu ili muweze kutueleza hasa siku hii ya leo hisia zenu ni zipi kuhusiana na impeachment ambayo iliweza kufanyika hapo jana. Pengine muweze kukaribia hapa karibu. Au tueleze jina lako ni nani na hisia zako ni nani?
Mimi nashukuru kwa ile uamuzi koti ilitoa. Kwa gavana alifuatilia hiyo hiyo Monda alichukua hongo. Naomba gavana wetu wa Kisii County afuate watu wa council, nao wako na hongo sana, wanatusumbua kwa ma stage, wanakamata magari, wanapeleka hongo. Hiyo hongo alichukua ilikuwa mbaya sana. Sisi watu wa Kisii County tumekataa hiyo hongo isiendelee hii Kisii County. Hiyo
na asante sana. Pengine tuweze kupata mkazi mwingine hapa, songea tu hapa karibu uweze kueleza hisia zako.
Haya, asante sana kwa kunipea hii nafasi siku ya leo nikiwa Kisii County ili niweze kutoa maoni yangu kulingana na hii impeachment ya Deputy Governor Kisii County. Kusema ukweli, wananchi wa Kenya, sisi kama wakaaji wa Kisii County, tukiwa na viongozi wetu mbali na Deputy Governor, tuko na kiongozi ambaye ni Simba Arati kama Governor Kisii County, na yeye ndio tunajua kiongozi yetu. Kwa upande ya impeachment iko sawa kwa wananchi wa Kisii County kulingana na matakwa ya kazi ya Kisii County. Huyu Deputy Governor ambaye ni Robert Monda Yeye hata kupiga kampeni kutuomba kura, lakini alichaguliwa na gavana mwenyewe ambaye ni Simba Arati. So hatuwezi kukubali wewe ambaye umechaguliwa na gavana kama mkubwa wako, baada ya siku chache hata kampeni hukufanya ulifanyiwa, sasa uanze kuleta mambo ya kugawanya wananchi wa Kisii County, wananchi kugawana watu ambaye kwa vitina, mambo ya kuleta siasa ile ambaye haitakiwi. Sisi tulikuchagua wewe, ulichaguliwa na wananchi, uwafanyie kazi kulingana na sheria ya gavana ama ya county. Hatukukuchagua ulete siasa ya South Mugirango. Sisi hatukukuchagua siasa ulete siasa ya Nyamira. Ulichaguliwa uongoze wananchi wa Kisii County. So kitu yangu ya mwisho ya kukuambia kama wewe deputy governor
kidogo,
pengine na ufanye kazi kwa
pengine tuweze kupata mkazi wa mwisho kabisa.
Twashukuru kwa majina, anaitwa Peter Makori kutoka hapa Kisii Stage. Unajua tulichagua viongozi tukikumbuka kampeni iliyopita, tulichagua Mheshimiwa Arati wakiwa naibu wake Mheshimiwa Munda. Sasa jambo la kushabisha kwa Wakenya, tulichagua mtufanyie maendeleo. Hasa msingi wa Arati hadi zile ambaye aliapa kwa Wakenya wa Kisii, alisema kwamba atatufanyia maendeleo na maendeleo tunaendelea kufanya. Siasa nzuri ni kujenga nchi. Siasa nzuri ni kujenga nchi. Siasa mbaya kama marehemu mzee mmoja alikuwa akisema, siasa mbaya maisha mabaya, siasa nzuri maisha mazuri. Mungekuwa chini ya Arati mfanye maendeleo vile tunavyopenda, vile tuliwapenda tukawachagua, pia na huyu una rep wake.
Naam, asante sana. As you have just heard, those are the few sentiments of residents from Kisii County. This is something that I'll be bringing you up to speed in their subsequent bulletins. From here at the Kisii main stage, my name is Kombo Alfayo. Back to you, studio, Fred Indimoli.
Thank you so much, Alfayo from Kisii, bringing us up to speed with the conversations happening there with the impeachment of Deputy Governor Robert Monda. Time for us to take a break. When we come back, we'll still continue this conversation with Gabriel Muthuma, the Deputy Government Spokesperson, on the government's hiring crisis. I'm still in studio with Gabriel Muthuma, the Deputy Government Spokesperson, and we're looking at the HR crisis that the government is facing. Just a quick look at the headlines this morning. We're talking about skewed hiring at the KRA, issues to do with the doctor strike, and I want us to focus on that for now. Let's move to the health docket. And as it is, doctors in various regions have down their tools.
Right.
In protest at the failure by government to hire 4,000 intern doctors. And it comes at a time when we're transitioning from the NHIF to SHIF, which already has its own challenges, and it's also resource heavy. The government has already indicated that they will be making collections beginning this month for the SHIF, months ahead of the intended rollout. Right. People have not even registered for this new social health insurance fund. So, but the money is being collected. What is required right now, and what is more urgent, is the hiring of intern doctors. But the CS says there's no money. Ask Treasury. Now, what is the government's stand on this, the strike by doctors?
First of all, it's quite unfortunate that it's happening. The doctors going on strike, this is not the first time we are seeing it. It has happened, many times while we are, in various administrations. So this is not something that's very, it's not something that is really pointing to serious failure in the Kenya Kwanza administration. However, as I'm saying, it is unfortunate, and I know as we speak, the stakeholders need to, sit down and really come up with a solution. As I know something is being done, we may not be able to see it happening right now because sometimes that's what we expect. We need to see things moving, but I can tell you there are discussions going on, and I'm really, really, and very hopeful that this situation is going to be sorted the earliest. Having said that, Fred, it is also good because I saw there was a court order that was against the strike, and again, this is a matter of following the law, where I feel at the end of the day, the striking doctors and their heads, must come to the table of discussion, because really that's how we solve things, is when we sit down and we look at the challenges that are ahead of us and how we can alleviate those challenges. That is how we've always progressed as a nation. Right now, if you see, I know you've gone around some of the hospitals and you see the people who are ailing are really the poor, the downtrodden, the people who cannot, afford to run to private hospitals. And these are the people who are really affected. And that's why I'm telling you, the government is really feeling it. Because at the end of the day, these are the Kenyan citizens, the real Kenyan citizens who are suffering. So the faster we move on to find a solution, an amicable solution, so to speak, the better. And that's why I'm telling you without fear of contradiction, there are things that are, that are being discussed as we speak.
But the CS has been categorical, there's no money. So what other kind of discussion could they be having?
You see, some of those things, when you say there is no money, it's a case of putting the real situation on the ground forward. If there's no money, really, as I've heard the CS say, it's not that the government does not want to do what the medics, the leaders of the medics are saying. Look at what the government has already rolled out in terms of shift. Look at the landscape that the government is changing. We are moving to Fred, and this again, this one you have to look at it holistically for you to understand where we are going. You have to look at a healthcare system through NHIF that was completely broken, where NHIF had become a cesspool for the corrupt. You've heard about hospitals that were charging government heavily and they were getting paid. And they would write these funny claims that some were even doing 29 surgeries a day, yet they didn't even have one single theater. All right? You're looking at an infrastructure that was nothing short of a serious wash business. Yet Kenyans were paying for it. So here you've structured something towards universal health care, something that many people thought cannot be achieved. It has always looked good, Fred, on paper. But nobody has had that deliberate attempt to fix it until the president came along and said, this can be done and it should be done. And guess what? Today, we have community health promoters. the first entry to ensuring that somebody in Mashinani is okay as far as health go. We got out of a system that people are contributing very little. And here, I'm talking about fairness. As it is in first world countries where health is seriously prioritized, people give their fair share as far as contribution goes. It did not make sense, absolutely no sense, that people like me and you, who at least, have a well-padded bank balance, if you allow me to use those words, were contributing the same way with somebody who is selling sweets, pale kwa barabara. It was so skewed. But now, with my earnings, or in your earnings, or millionaire XYZ, their fair share is upped kidogo so that they can do their fair share. And this is why.
Is it all about the money? Because we have emerging issues
Fred,
right now.
Fred is about building,
looking for more money
is
right now.
about building a credible system that will be effective as far as taking care of our health as a nation go. And that is why this new model, when it starts working, because it will work, it will be a game changer. Many people have sat down on it. Serious thought processes have been put in place, and you will see it working. This one, I guarantee you. Just like the other day when we were saying, the president would promise us one thing, and you hear everybody and their uncle, what in unison is on his stories ajaba. But now look at things. They are starting to unfold. Fred, there's something I will call you in on, and you allow me to actually execute this as far as healthcare go. As a country, we are used to immediate gratification. Some of the things that the president has been talking about, and this administration has been putting in place, they require delayed gratification for people.
When it comes to healthcare, can we really delay even a single day? The doctors strike for a matter of hours, people die.
Tom, is about putting up a system. Can you imagine, Fred, for the longest, we've applied momentum in the wrong direction. That's something the president doesn't want to do. Let us fix the system that will be able to offer quality healthcare.
Okay. So
because
what happens in the interim?
So you see,
because we're in a situation where we are transitioning from NHIF to SHIF.
Correct.
SHIF, even registrations are yet to begin. And the rollout for SHIF is going to be in the new financial year, as from July. Deductions are going to begin this month.
Correct.
Meaning that we'll be paying for SHIF for at least 4 months.
Correct.
Without necessarily receiving any services.
No. Not necessarily receiving any service.
According to the headlines,
there's not going to be, Fred, I think
private hospitals have already stopped working with the NHIF.
It's erroneous because there's not going to be a lacuna. Yeah? When the president says that nobody is going to be left behind, this is a very deliberate thing.
So what is the clarity during this next 4 months?
So obviously, me and you know, when there's a new system in place, before you onboard everything, there's going to be that probably, things are not moving the right way, or, all the nuts and bolts are not turning in the right direction. But that does not mean that it's not getting fixed, or that does not mean that system that we want to adopt into is broken. No, it just means that during the transition, there is going to be a small, same way you move into a new house. You've moved from your old house, you're moving into your new house, you've brought in your items, they are disarranged kidogo for a few days, and you rearrange everything, and you come home and you look in the beautiful house that you've moved into, and you say, hey, everything is in rightful place. Yeah, it is the same thing.
So you're what I fear for the next 4 months.
What I fear, and this is something that
Kenyans may not be able to access services within the next 4 months before the rollout of SHIF.
No, I do not think anybody is going to be left out, and I think the CS has really clarified on that. The CS has really clarified on that during the transition period, they are doing the best they can to ensure that everybody who walks into a hospital gets treatment. Now,
I say this because NHIF, let me say, has been demonized, whether correctly or wrongly.
No, it has not been, Fred,
because
again, it's not a matter,
400,
it's not a matter of being demonized, Fred.
400 private hospitals have already started declining the NHIF card as it is. Meaning that many Kenyans are not accessing the services despite them still paying for the same every month.
It's not being demonized. NHIF, if you look at it, and the facts that have been laid on the ground, the president has talked about them, the cabinet secretary has talked about them, the PS, I remember PS Modoni the other day, she was on a show, I don't know whether it was in this media or on another one, and she was explaining, some of these things. You know very well, Fred, if you've really gone down to really look at what NHIF had become. Indeed, it was a cesspool of the corrupt. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And if it was working, then really our healthcare infrastructure should have been okay. It wasn't, Fred, and we have to call these things out because some of the naysayers, yeah, would want us to be in that particular environment where very few hospitals and few individuals are able to milk millions into billions of taxpayers' money into their pockets through a system that they've poked, not even holes, through a system which they've known how to manipulate.
So NHIF should still be operational until the end, June 30th.
I think the transition has or is being sorted in a way that no Kenyan will be left behind. I have been very seriously, I have seriously been following what the CS Health has been talking about when it comes to transitioning. It is actually in black and white, Like I told you, sometimes we like creating a scenario that's not there.
It is a reality.
It's not. No. We have transitioned from one program, many government programs, we've transitioned from one into the other. And we are probably the older one, always the status quo. People are afraid of change, have said, why people have ran into court, wanasema hapana, hii kitu wanataka kutupeleka pale, haitafanya kazi. Fred, we've seen this. Look at the Maisha card. Didn't we not go to court because of moving from an older generation ID to a better one that will really be a game changer, one that, is defined by the sophisticates of this century, one where when it works, when it's rolled out, we will not have an issue anymore about...
My concern, especially with the healthcare, is in the interim, before the full rollout of SHIF, are we staring at a situation where, as a country, we do not have a national health insurance cover for the next 4 months? That's the question.
You see, the more we register, and that's why you have been hearing the clarion call from government, including our president, for Kenyans to register to this new health fund. It is because of what it encapsulates. We had a very how can I call it? We had a very unbalanced situation when we were bringing in community health promoters. And you remember, it was a very big, huge debate. Yeah, you had people who probably nearly moved to court to stop that process because they did not understand, or they felt somebody was eating into their small plan. All right? But if you look at what they are currently doing, even through the hiring and what have you, if you look at what they are currently doing, it is transformative. So right now, Fred, where I want to take you away from is focusing on an area. No, it is focusing. That has already been sorted out. We cannot have
clarity on how it's been sorted out.
We cannot, and that's what
do we have a national health cover for the next 4 months as we transition to SHF?
The transition will be through and through.
Okay.
And you know, again, let's be honest. I know you have that data. I know you can get, you have access to that information. And if you don't, I'll actually send it to you so that you can see. The transition, you know, like I'm telling you, may just have a little tittle bits of, you know, before everything sits in pretty well. New systems coming in, new functionalities coming in. So yes, the transition may have 1, 2, 3 issues.
There are some problems.
But yes, but that does not mean, I wouldn't even call them problems.
Okay.
You know, the same way, the analogy I've just given you, when you're moving to your new house, you're moving to your old house, you're moving with your things, you've boxed everything, you've brought them in. When I open that new house of yours, everything is haphazard. But that does not mean you're not going to arrange things. You've already moved into this new house where it's your lovely abode. This is probably what you bought, a good home in the affordable housing.
The same analogy is that we're planning to move to a new house, but we've already left the old one, but we're yet to move into the new one. So we're just there in between.
No, there you go again.
Anyway, let's look at another issue that I'd want your clarity on. For a number of months since President William Ruto took over, the expression of the communication from government was that we are in dire straits financially, that we need to change a lot of things, there's no money. But the CAS debate was still there. Now it has been revived. Now there's the approval by Parliament to entrench the Chief Administrative Secretary positions in the law, meaning that the government and the President will be given a go-ahead to hire 22 CASs. That in itself will come with financial implications.
Right.
For a country that is in dire straits, should we still be insisting on going that direction for positions that have already been declared redundant?
Who declared them redundant? Anyway, we actually in that particular environment, so let us see, you know, JLAC has pronounced themselves how that particular airing of the cases should go. So we are all going to wait on that and see how that comes, or, you know, how that is, how that goes. But in the interim, I think, let's discuss what you've just said about a country that was in dire straits. Truth of the matter is we were not doing well economically. The president did not hide this from Kenyans from day one. And this is one thing that I've come to like about this emphasis, that Kenya's major problem was the debt. President has spoken about it, the Cabinet Secretary Treasury has spoken about it, and many other people within the Economic Advisory Council that advise the President from time to time in matters economy, they've also talked about it. And it is indeed true. Now you can see. Indeed, our problem has been the debt. And we only needed to find ways, first of all, to see how we were going to stop that bleed of debt. And when the president came out the other day, communicated to the country that we are out of the red, it is not because, you know, and I had somebody saying, oh, global forces, I can't, and you know, it wouldn't even give that statement a lot of push because I want to move with the ideas that the plan that the president had laid down is working.
So we are now in a better situation financially. We are able to hire CASs.
Not only that, you know, CS is a very small spec for us to be discussing. It's a very small spec, so to speak. Where we should be is we have now moved to where we are seeing change, transformation. Fred, I told you one thing. We like as a country, and sometimes you really cannot beat us as much because we are people who like instant gratification. Some of the things that the president has done, we may not have seen them because the workings were in the background. There is something I tell people many times, something called noiseless effect. And this one I can give you an example. I'm assuming you have children.
Yes, I do.
Let me give you an example. And it's actually, it's a good example. Many people may not find it, but it's a good example. when you decided to have children, at the time of conception, nothing really changed. That's a noiseless effect. But in real sense, there was a life that was already growing. And in 9 months, gradually, it will be seen. The noiseless effect. Some of the things that we are seeing today were planned. Strategic and deliberate, as the president keeps saying. Look at unga today. There are no more, nobody is wearing a sufuria. And when the president was saying, we have a plan, indeed, just because we are not seeing it, we wanted people to come and, what is this plan? What have you done? No, noiseless effect. Look at the price of petroleum. Cost of living is no longer an issue.
Cost of living is no longer an issue.
It is being sorted. As you can see, look at where the dollar is, and it's still going down. What does that tell you? There has been serious laid down plans and strategies that will set our course.
Yesterday, the headlines talked about a plan to increase taxation on milk and bread by imposing a 16% VAT.
Plan. Well, as far as I remember, as far as I'm concerned.
We've seen all plans so far, and as a government spokesman, you speak for all the arms of government. We've seen that each and every policy coming from the executive, Treasury included, is simply rubber stamped by Parliament. So any proposal coming from Treasury, more or less, will be rubber stamped and become part of our laws.
No, let's not use that word rubber.
When you say that we are doing better,
not everybody follows robotic instructions. We are doing better. That is a fact. We are doing better. And I keep insisting. I keep telling people we may not be where we want to be, but Fred, we are surely not where we used to be.
Introduction of 16% VAT on basic food items like milk and bread, is that indicative of an economy that's doing better?
Let me shock you. The items that you've just mentioned, and I remember, if I may remember, and this I know I am correct to say, the Cabinet Secretary was actually giving an example on those two items. He was giving an example. Here you have milk, which is 0 rated, bread, which is 0 rated as we speak, the water that you drink, Dasani, or whichever brand that you choose, is that water 0 rated? I doubt. What is so wrong, Fred, with paying taxes? Why are we, and in those particular facets, just look at it. Why do we talk about thriving nations? The president gave a very good example of Japan. The president has been on the forefront saying that we can only develop this country, by being able to handle our affairs.
But higher food prices will have an impact on the entire economy. It's a fundamental of an economy.
No.
Higher food prices will definitely impact.
You're looking at it differently. Here we are not talking about food prices. We are talking about items that were 0 rated, getting to the tax. There's nothing wrong, Tom. We are paying taxes on other food items. You see, an honest debate requires honest engagement. You've never asked yourself that question. I pay taxes on my bottle of water. Why is it not 0 rated? You have two. The Cabinet Secretary was just asking a question.
Is it fair to compare bottled water with milk?
No. I'm giving you an example. Okay. I'm just giving you an example. All right? Look at something like bread. Many other food items that we consume on a daily basis are taxed. So, Fred, I'm putting it to you. Just think about it. Think about it. Okay. Why these two commodities? Unga, the one we keep talking about, which is a staple food, is taxed, right? So, this conversation should be so honest. Then somebody should ask, by the way, why not? Why not?
Okay.
Yeah. There are so many milk products. There are so many milk products.
Give us your final remarks in the next 2 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something you would want to communicate to Kenyans from the government's perspective.
No, I think things are going in the right direction. Fred, I've been talking to mainly the young people. We say the youth of a nation are the trustees of posterity. And as such, it is incumbent upon us to raise a generation of people who believe that their country can actually make a mark, can find its place or her place in global relevance. We may not see the full picture. And we may say, you know, the leaders have a bird's eye view. Sometimes it's good to trust a leadership that's working. To me, I will tell you, we and many Kenyans that I know, we are people we are the now people. We want it now. But building a nation, I've insisted and I've said it before, is not or does not create a hooray moment. Building a nation, Fred, requires that we have consistency. That is number one. We have open and truthful engagements. Requires that all of us pay our fair share. Requires that we look back and uplift those who are unable to get to where they want to go. And we have people who can give them a push or a pull to alleviate them to the standards that they can be grateful for. For example, the president has insisted when it comes to universal health care, those that cannot pay, the government will stand in for them. It can never get better than that. And to push us a little bit further, that those who can afford, those who knew very well that they were paying us a limit of 300 shillings while they make millions, that they can live up to the true spirit of paying their fair share and live into the true believability that if my brother or sister is in trouble, so are we. Fred, that's how we develop a nation.